Hi.
Welcome, Margie.
Very good. Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, I don't know how much I need this microphone. Let's try it. There. That's better. Good evening.
Good evening.
It's better. I'll use it. I'll use it. It'll save my voice. I've told lots of stories already today. And I'm ready to tell more, because that's what I do, and it's what I love to do. My name is Midge Byram. And I know it's a funny little name, Midge. It's spelled M-I-J. And actually, there's a story behind that, but I'm not going to tell that story tonight. You'll have to come back another time, or I'll have to come back another time for that story. But I do tell all kinds of stories. I tell personal stories, and I tell folk tales and fairy tales and original fiction that I compose just out of my head on a whim. And then sometimes you see something on the road or a character. I was talking to you about a place I worked in, and I couldn't think of anything that happened there of any significance, but I thought about the characters. And what an amazing array of characters they were. And so you create stories like that. And the way I came into storytelling, well, I graduated with a degree in children's creative play. Now, how fun is that, right?
Oh, yeah.
From Dominican College in Racine, Wisconsin. So I'm from the Midwest. Yeah, children's creative play. So you know what my life is about, right?
Yeah.
It's playing and having fun. And after college, I did some work in sales. And I found out that in sales I was telling stories. Of course, I worked in classrooms and so forth, and there's a lot of storytelling that goes on in classrooms. And then I actually spent 12 years behind bars telling not those kind of bars. No, I was a bartender, thank you. See, he knew, I'm not like behind bars. Right, so I told a lot of stories as I tended bar, too. And I realized that storytelling is it's part of our life. It's how we pass on our history. We were talking about history and how it repeats itself and so forth. And then I did some public speaking, and that's kind of how I got into the profession of storytelling. And I spoke, I was living on the West Coast in Sarasota, and I would speak for a group called the Pinellas Speakers Forum. And they would send me out on these jobs, everything from like Tampa down to Inglewood, up and down the coast, and I did quite a few of them. And my topic would be communication and how we need to communicate better. And it would be stories, little vignettes. And if I was speaking to the men's group, then they would be stories about the wives and women. And if it would be story or sports, and then if you speak to the women's group, then it would be stories about what our lives are like, and stories about men and how we need to communicate with them. So I got really good at telling stories all up and down the West Coast there, and I'd look at my call card and I'd go in and I'd tell a story, and it got to the point where I just would get these call cards and I put on my suit or my leisure suit, if it was the 80s and whatever it was, and then I would go and I'd tell the stories. Well, I had a lot of business through the Kiwanis and the Rotary and those kinds of men's clubs and ladies' guilds and that sort of thing. But the Kiwanis met at 7 a.m. And I would do this program down in Inglewood, which was about an hour away. Well, one day, I'm leaving my home. It was winter time. It's dark out in the morning at like 6 o'clock in the morning. And I've got my suit. I'm thinking, oh, it's cold out, so I grab a hooded sweatshirt just to throw on over my dress suit, and I've got my tea in hand because I know it's going to be a long drive. And I just get out on the road and oh my gosh, how could I do this? How could I leave without brushing my teeth? Oh gosh, but I know how I did it because I had tea with me, and I always brush my teeth after I have the tea. So I thought, no problem. I will stop and get a pack of gum. And there was 24-hour gas stations. I knew where they were. So I pull into the closest gas station, and I pull my hood over my head because it's windy out and it's cold. And I walk up to the 24-hour thing, and they had these remember that when you would slide through the cash, this was before the slide your card in, you know, before the automated things, you have to put your money in there and slide it through to the other side. It was bulletproof, whatever. And I went in there with my hood up and my hands in my pocket, and I said to the guy, I parked my car real close. I said, I need a pack of gum, let's go, come on, pack of gum. And he's like, what? I said, pack of gum, come on, let's go. I'm in a hurry. And he's like, what? Okay. And he starts putting all the money into this little drawer to pass on through to me. And he's like emptying his cash register, and he's putting it in there. And I'm going, what are you doing? He said, lady, don't give me any trouble. I'll just give you all the cash. I said, I just want a pack of gum. And he thought that I was packing a gun, right? So here I go down to the Kiwanis with this just happening, and I'm about to talk about, well, communication, right? So I'm thinking, this is a perfect story. So I used this story, and they thought it was rather humorous. I mean, I was let's just say I was younger at the time, and they thought it was, so I used this story all the time as an opening story for a lot of my groups, not all of them, and as I said before, I got to the point where I would look at my call card and I'd dress appropriately and I'd go, and sometimes it'd be a potluck and the Kiwanis and blah, blah, blah. And one time I get a call on a Saturday. I go, okay, Saturday at this restaurant or this club. All right, here I go. And I walk in and I'm noticing, wow, this is nice. Like there's white tablecloths and napkins. This is no potluck. I'll tell you, this is nice. And everyone in there, men and women, they're all wearing suits. All the men have on ties. So it's not just leisure suits, it's suits, ties, heels, nylons. I think, whoa, okay. They introduce me, and I start to tell my opening story, which is about how I had a miscommunication with the guy at the gas station, and I get to the point where I'm saying, now, can you imagine somebody thinking that I would pack a gun? And everybody in that audience, every man and every woman in that house nodded their head. Yes. And I'm thinking, who am I talking to? That they would think that me, I was pretty innocent looking then, and they think I would pack a gun? Well, I gave the rest of my talk, my little stories and so forth, and I went back to my chair and I pull out of my purse this call card that I would get to tell me where to go, and who am I talking to? Oh my gosh, retired FBI agents. I guess they suspect everybody of packing a gun, right? Well, I learned that you need to know who you're talking to. That's probably one of the first things I learned in Toastmasters anyway, is to know your group. And I didn't know who I was talking to. I haven't been here before, but I heard good things. Olga said, oh, you'll love our residents. You'll love them. And I do already, just a few people I've met. And had I known, I'll tell you, I wouldn't have worn these shoes, that's for sure. I would have felt a lot more comfortable. Okay. So I tell a lot of different stories. And I think that I'm going to open up with a folk story. A folk story about a king. And then we'll see where else we go from here. And a king and stuff. Now, we've all got stuff, right? I've got stuff coming out of my closets to the point where I can't close the doors. And I got stuff in a purse that I just can't seem to put that purse down. And I've got stuff under my bed and stuff in my car. You got stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got stuff. Okay, so she admits it. We all got stuff. But nobody's got more stuff than a king. Because when you are the king, well, you get to have as much stuff as you want. And you can have any stuff you want. And this particular king, he would walk around out on the veranda in the evening, and he would look at his kingdom and look at all the stuff that he had. And then one evening he looked up the moon. And he said, oh, I don't have one of those. I think I'd like one of those. Yes, I want that. Yes. And so he called his advisors together the next day, and he said, I want that thing in the sky. It's the bright, shiny, round, yes. And the advisor said, Your Majesty, are you talking about the moon? Yes, I want the moon. Your Majesty, you can't have the moon. What do you mean I can't have the moon? I'm the king, and if I want the moon, I shall have the moon. So go and get it for me. Your Majesty, the moon belongs to everyone. You can't have the moon. Well, those advisors, they wound up in the dungeon. And because nobody else wanted to wind up in the dungeon, nobody else wanted to tell the king that he couldn't have the moon. And yet, nobody knew how to get it for him. So he said, that's fine, I'll get it for myself. Bring me boxes. Bring me all the boxes from the castle. And they did. They brought boxes from the livery, boxes from the kitchen, boxes from the throne room, boxes from the library. They brought every box that they could find in the castle, and the king stacked them up. He stacked them up so high, and then he climbed those boxes. And when he reached up, well, of course he couldn't touch the moon. He needed more boxes. And so he commanded that everyone in the kingdom should bring him boxes. And they did. It was his kingdom. They were his boxes. That means that all the dads, they had to dump out their tools from their toolboxes, and mothers, their sewing boxes, and their hat boxes, and their ring boxes, and children, well, they had to dump out their toys from their toy boxes, and the merchants and the librarians. All the boxes from the whole kingdom were gathered on the veranda of that palace, and he stacked them up. And then he climbed, and the people gathered around to see if indeed he would touch the moon. And he climbed, and he climbed, and he reached up. No, he couldn't touch the moon. He needed more boxes. And so he said, I need more boxes. Your Majesty, you have all the boxes in the castle, you have all the boxes in the kingdom. We have no more boxes. Then cut down the trees and make boxes. His trees, his command, it was done. It took them 3 months, but they cut down every tree in that kingdom. They sawed them up into wood, and they made boxes as big as cars. They made boxes as big as rooms. They made boxes as small as my thumb. There was not a piece of wood that was missing. He stacked those boxes up, and there was a mountain of boxes. And he climbed, and he climbed, and he climbed, and the people gathered to see if he would do it. And he reached up and up and up, and he was so close. He almost touched the moon. He just needed one more. And so he looked down, and he called to the people below. He said, I need one more box. And the people scurried around everywhere. They looked everywhere. And they called back up to the king, and they said, Your Majesty, we don't have any more boxes. The king reached up and realized he was so close to the moon. He wanted that moon. And then he had an idea. He had an idea. He looked down at all those boxes and all those people, and he called, Then send one up from the bottom. And that is exactly what they did. He didn't get the moon. No, that would be silly. So, all right. Let me tell you a little bit more about me, if that's okay. Okay. I am from the Midwest. You heard Wisconsin was where I was raised, and I come from a big family. And I remember one afternoon in summer, I was probably like 8, 9 years old, and my mom was calling me, and it was, "Midge, Midge." And this was unusual because I had 2 teenage sisters, and they got called a lot, and I had 3 younger brothers, and they were always stirring things up. So my mode was probably just to go unnoticed and unseen and uncalled for, and I kind of liked it that way, you know, like not too much attention, just slide through the middle there. So I'm thinking, what is she calling me for? What did I do? What does she want with me? So I go into the kitchen, and she says, Midge, I need you to go to the store for me. I'm thinking, whoa. I never got to go to the store, at least not by myself. It was always, Kathy, Terry, go to the store and take your little sister along. Well, I thought, cool, I am going to the store. I felt pretty grown up about this. She said, I need a few things for lunch. And I wanted to get out of there before I had to take my little brothers, you know, so on my own, this was cool. So she said, Midge, this is what I need. I need some bread, and I need some eggs. That should do it. Just bring those things back for lunch. I said, cool, all right, I'll do that. And then she said, oh, Midge, wait a minute. Before you go, bring back some salt, too. I said, okay, Ma, so you want me to write this down? I said, Mom, I'm almost 9 years old. I can remember 3 things. It's bread and eggs and... What was it? Salt, and salt. I can remember this, Mom. You don't have to write it down. Then she starts to tell me all this stuff I already know, like stop before you cross the street, look both ways, don't stop to play, go right to Matranga's, put this money in your pocket, and don't take it out till you get there. I'm like, hello, Mom, I'm almost 9. I got it. So I am out the door and down the street. I stop at the corner, I look both ways, I cross the corner, I get past the school. Now where I was going was Matranga's Market. And you'll remember this. I love telling the story to people who actually remember the corner store. Remember? Yeah. This one was right across from school. And it's where all the kids went after school. You know, like on cold days or rainy days or windy days, and there were a lot of those kind of days in Wisconsin. So I would go in there, and well, all the kids would go in there. And if you had a penny, you could buy Bazooka bubble gum. And if you had 2 cents, you could buy Tootsie Rolls. And if you had 6 cents, you could buy a popsicle. And if you had 12 cents, if you had 12 cents, you were one of the rich kids. And you could buy a Twinkie. Oh, I loved Twinkies. They were my favorite, but we didn't get too many Twinkies. Because if I got a penny, that was pretty good, I thought. So anyway, I'm on my way to Matranga's. And the thing about Matranga's is that there's this guy that's always there. His name was Mr. Matranga. And at 9, I didn't quite get the association there. But he was kind of this grouchy guy. He had this like unibrow, that big hairy thing. And it was almost like his mustache, a big hairy thing that covered his mouth too. And he would yell at the kids. He'd say, get those muddy boots out of my store. You gonna buy something, or you just gonna sit there and drool? Get out of here, I'm gonna bite your head off. But you know, that didn't scare me. Not now, because now I was a customer. I was a paying customer. I was shopping for my mom, and I was bringing home the bread. And that was important stuff. So I wasn't afraid. So I walked right past school, and my friends were on the playground. Of course they wanted me to play ball, but I didn't stop. I said, I can't. I'm on my way to Matranga's. I got a responsibility. And they laughed at me. I just kept right on walking. And when I got to Matranga's, I opened the door, and that little bell, that was the security system of the time. I opened the door, and the bell rang, and I walked right in. And Mr. Matranga was at the front counter, and he looked right at me. But he didn't smile. I just walked right past. I knew where the bread was, and I got the bread. The white bread with the circles and the yellow and the red and the white, yeah, and that was it. I got the Wonder Bread, and I held it so carefully because you don't want to squish that kind of bread. It's very soft. So I walked very carefully, and I'm looking up and down the aisles for eggs. I was looking for eggs, and that's when I the eggs? The Twinkies. They were right on the end of the aisle. And I started to think about all that money I had in my pocket. And about how maybe Mom wouldn't notice if there were just 12 cents missing. And then I thought about how maybe I deserved to have a Twinkie for what I was doing for my family. And how I could eat it on the way home and stash the wrapper in the bushes by the garage and nobody would ever know. And then I thought again, and I thought about my responsibility to my family and how, of course, Mom would notice 12 cents missing. And I walked right by those Twinkies. And I walked up and down every aisle of that store looking for the eggs. And it took me up and down every aisle. I got to the very back of the store where there's the cheese and the milk and the eggs. And I picked up those eggs so carefully, and I carried them to the front counter where there was Mr. Matranka. I reached in my pocket and I pulled out that dollar bill and I paid him, and I think he called me a little lady. That made me feel pretty good. I was a little lady. Mr. Matranka called me a little lady. He gave me the change and I put all of that change back in my pocket. I walked out of that store with that sack and I walked past my friends on the playground playing, and I went home with such pride. And when I put those groceries on the counter and all the change there, I felt terrific. Until my mom said, Midge, didn't you forget something? I said, no, Mom, it's all there. You can count it. It's all there. She said, no, Midge, it's not the change. That's not it. You forgot something. I said, oh, no. I did. I forgot something, the salt. But I didn't want to go back to Matranga's. I mean, I kind of felt like I had been lucky the first time. I mean, what if he didn't say little lady? What if he said, I'll get you later? I didn't want to go back. And so, this is what I said. Now, you got to understand why I said it. It was because there were so many rules at my house, but the number one rule was no lying. So, that's how come I got to be a storyteller. I said, Mom, I didn't see any salt at Matranga's. Truth, right? And then she said, Midge, I was just there a couple days ago and they had a lot of salt. I said, well, I didn't see any. Maybe they sold it all. Supposition. Midge, how could they do that? Doesn't make. And I said, yeah, Mom, I think actually I heard that there's a big sale on salt because of the Salt Festival. Yeah, there's a Salt Festival. You know, Mom, salt art and salt slides and salt games. And, you know, I guess we won't go because we don't have any salt, but that's okay, Mom. We don't have to go. And she said, Midge, did you ask Mr. Matranka for help? She thinks I'm going to ask him? Talk to him? This big, hairy ogre that scares kids and friends to bite their ass. I am not about it. I said, no, Mom, I didn't ask for help. And she said, all right, Midge, I'll just call him and tell him you're coming back, and he can put it at the front. I said, no, don't call him. He'll know I'm coming. Don't, please don't. All right, I'll go. So I took a quarter and I put it in my hand. I put my hand deep in my pocket and I stomped down the street. And you know what? I did not even stop at the corner because I thought, you know what? If I get killed, if I get hit, if I never come back again, she'll be sorry. I mean, what if my head gets bit off? I mean, if he sees me in there again, he's gonna. Wait a minute. If he sees me, but what if he doesn't see me? What if I were invisible? You see, being a middle child in a big family, I had learned how to do this. My cousins, there's 11 of them in one family, and they came to visit last summer, the summer before, And with 11 of them, and then the 6 of us, and aunts and uncles and grandmas and neighbor kids and this and that, I mean, heck, there was a whole lot of us. And I found out that I could be right in the middle of a room full of action and activity, and I could be invisible. Oh yeah, I could do it. I could stand right in the middle, and nobody saw me. Nobody called my name. I mean, I missed bath time and bedtime and meal time, and it was great. And then I learned how to be invisible at school. And then I learned how to be invisible in church. And if I could be invisible in church and at school, at home, I could be invisible at Matranga's too. And the trick was, you just have to slow down your heart rate. And there's no bouncing. And you can't make too much noise. And so you just kind of walk with your head down, nice and easy. And then you kind of take it in. And I could feel it coming over me. I was becoming invisible. And when I passed the playground, I knew I was invisible because my friends didn't call to me. You know why? They couldn't see me. I was invisible. But there was a problem here. It was how to get into Matranga's. Remember, you had that bell above the door? You know, if I opened the door and the bell rang and he looked up, all right, I'm just going to have to wait until somebody opens the door. So I'm standing there, being invisible, and I'm seeing people walk by, just trying to keep my head down. There's a pair of dirty sneakers, and then there were some boots, and a lady walking by with her slippers on and stockings rolled down to her ankles, and I am becoming more and more invisible as time goes by. And then my chance happens. Mrs. Jansta, she sang at the choir. She did the organ and the singing in church, and she was a big lady. She had a big voice. And when she came out of Matranga's door, she threw that door open wide, and I slipped inside. And he didn't look at me. I thought, I'm in. Now all I have to do is find the salt. Thank you. All I have to do is find the salt. So I start walking up and down every aisle, nice and slow, past the bread, past the cereal, past the soup, and then I hear it. I hear, Wah! I'm thinking, oh no, he did it. He finally bit some kid's head off. Oh no. You know how those things happen, and you don't want to look, but you have to look. I had to look, but I knew that I was going to come around the corner, and I was going to see some kid's head rolling down on the floor. And when I came around, oh, no, it was Susie Shinkowitz. She was crying because she wanted a Twinkie, and she had grabbed a pack of Twinkies and squeezed them, and all the creamy inside was now on the outside of that beautiful sponge cake, and she was getting a spanking. Now, when I was a child, public spankings were not all that unusual, really. Not in my neighborhood, anyway. But this public spanking came at a very, very bad time because it had cracked my invisibility shield, and everyone in the store was looking at me. Even though Susie Shinkowitz was the one crying, everyone was looking at me, and I began to sweat. And there was Mr. Matranga standing there with his apron and his mustache and his hairy arms, and he was looking right at me. So I started to run. I ran up and down every aisle of that store, and I was looking for something. I didn't even remember what it was, but it was something, and I was hoping that something would just jump out at me, and I would take that quarter, and I would throw it at the counter, and I would never, ever, ever come back to Matranga's Market again. But that's not what happened. I got all the way to the very back of the corner. I got to the back of the corner where the milk and the cheese and the eggs were, and there was Mr. Matranga. And he looked down at me, and he said, "Yes." And I wanted to speak, but my voice, it felt like it was just squeezed right out of me. And I opened my mouth, and "Yes, what is it? I don't have all day." I said, I need salt! I need salt! And Millie was Mr. Matranga's invisible wife, and she took me over to where the salt was, and oh my gosh, there was salt. There was like 2 rows of salt that went all the way back to the wall. There was tons of salt in there, and packages and boxes, and in glass jars there was salt. And I picked up the one with the little girl on it, you know, with the umbrella, and I love that salt in the round package. And when I turned around with that salt, I noticed, oh my gosh, there they were, the Twinkies. The Twinkies. No wonder I hadn't seen the salt when I only had eyes for Twinkies. Well, after that, I did go into Matranga's from time to time, and I still turned invisible from time to time. In fact, I can still do it now, today. Well, not here, because you can see me, but it still comes in handy. And these days, when I can have all the Twinkies that I want, like as many as I can buy, it's just not the same. What I really like now are the salty things. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, let's see, a couple of folk tales here. Here's one that's got a little bit of humor to it. This is a story about, oh boy, aren't we all looking for our luck, you know? We're always searching for our break in life. Well, this guy, he had enough money. He had a good life. He had a house up in the mountains, and he had a lot going for him. But he just felt like he wasn't lucky. And so he asked all his friends, he said, how come I don't have any luck? Everybody else has luck. Where's my luck? And somebody told me, he said, well, you have to ask the wise woman that. You have to go into town and ask her. And so he went to the wise woman, which is a good thing for a man to do, right? Ask a wise woman for help. But the wise woman, all she could say is, for that answer, you'll have to ask God. Well, God? Where do I find God? He says, you have to go east. Go east, and you will find God. She says, okay, go east, I'll find God. And so he went, because he was determined to find some luck. So he went east. He walked east a day, a week, a month, a year and a day. He walked east until he came upon a field with a lot of wolves in it. And on this side, there were a lot of big, furry, ferocious wolves. But on this side, there was one kind of scrawny wolf, and his hair was matted down. He didn't look too good. But the man, he decided to take this path. And as he passed that scrawny wolf, the wolf asked him, where are you going? He said, I'm going to go meet God. I'm going to go ask God why I don't have any luck. And the wolf said, well, could you ask him for me? Why I'm so thin and scrawny, and all those guys are, big and healthy. And the man said, well, sure, of course. That's the least I could do for you. I'll ask God. I'm sure he'll have an answer for you. And on walked the man. He walked a day, a week, a month, a year and a day. And then he passed through a forest. And in this forest there were beautiful trees everywhere. And as he made his way through the forest, something fell on his head. It was one single leaf, the last leaf from a very thin, scrawny tree. And as that leaf fell, he stopped, and the tree said, where is it that you journey to? And the man said, I'm going to meet God, and I'm going to ask him why I don't have any luck. I have no luck at all. All my friends have luck, but not me. And the tree spoke to him, and he said, I have no luck. Would you ask God why I'm so thin and have no leaves, and what can be done for me? And the man said, of course I can do that. That's the least I can do. I will ask God why you are so thin and scrawny and have no leaves. And they passed through that forest. That man walked on a day, a week, a month, and a year and a day, and then he came to a field, and in the middle of that field was a beautiful house surrounded by flowers, and that was surrounded by a picket fence. I mean, it's exactly like you are imagining right now. And he walked up to that house, and he knocked on the door, And the most beautiful woman answered. And she invited him in, and they had wine, and they had dinner and conversation like he had never had before. And it was just the most wonderful experience for him. And she asked, "Where is it that you journey to?" And he told her, "Well, I'm going east. I'm going to meet God. I'm going to find out why I have no luck." She said, "Oh, would you ask him for me why I'm so lonely?" Yes, of course I'll ask him that. Of course, I'll do that for you, and I'm sure that he'll know, too. And so he had to leave. She said, "Oh, please, won't you stay?" "No, I have to leave." So he walked on, a day, a week, a month, a year and a day, and he got as far east as he could go. And just as he had imagined, there, out, floating on a cloud, was God. Just as he had imagined him. And as God floated closer, the man said, I have questions for you. I have questions. I've come so far. I want to know. And God spoke. He said, "I know why you are here." He says, "Well, of course you know. I mean, you're God. How silly of me. Of course you know." And he said, "But why? Why don't I have?" And he said, "You don't have luck." That's a silly thing to ask. You have luck. Luck is all around you. All you have to do is open your eyes to see it. It's right there before you. Now go and find your luck." And the man thought, "This is great. I do have luck. I do. All I have to do is look for it because it's right there before my..." And he said, "Oh, wait. I have one more question. I have something else to ask you." And God said, I know what your other questions are." And he floated a little closer, and he whispered in the man's ear, and he filled him with this knowledge. And he said, "Oh, I got it. The man was so excited now, and he was going to go find his luck. And as he left, he thanked God, and he walked west. And you know how long he walked west. I don't have to tell you that. And the first place he came to was that field with the house in it, with the flowers and the picket fence. And there was that beautiful woman waiting for him again. And he went in, and they had dinner and wine and conversation. And she said, "Did you ask him? Did you ask him why I'm so lonely?" And the man said, "Oh, yes, I asked him. And what he told me is that you're lonely because you have no one to love, and that you should marry the first nice man that comes your way." She said, "Oh, that's you. I'm sure that's you. I mean, you're a nice man. Well, can't we do it? Can't we get married?" And he said, "Oh, no, I can't get married. I have to go find my luck. I have to be on my way. I'm sorry, but good luck to you. I'm sure that there'll be another young man about here soon." And so he left her. And he walked on and on until he came to that forest. And when he came to that forest, he passed underneath that tree, and that scrawny tree asked him, "Did you ask God why I'm so thin and scrawny and I have no leaves?" And that man said, "Oh, yes, I asked him, and you know what God told me? God told me that you are thin and scrawny because you need some nutrition. You need some nutrition because apparently there's a treasure chest buried at your roots, and your roots are not getting nutrition, and so you need to have somebody dig up that treasure chest, and then you will have..." And the tree said, well, what about you? I know that some work, they left a shovel there. I mean, you could dig it up." And the man said, "I can't do that. I'm on my way. I'm on my way to find my luck. I'm sorry, I can't help you, but I'm sure that there'll be somebody else by here soon, and they can dig it up, and then you'll have nutrition and grow leaves, and it'll be wonderful." And the man laughed, and he walked on and on until he came to that field with the wolves in it. And when he passed that one scrawny wolf, the wolf, of course, he wanted to know, "Why am I so thin and scrawny when, look at my brothers?" And the man said, God told me why. He told me that you're thin and scrawny because you're not eating enough. And what you are supposed to do is to eat the next stupid animal that comes your way. And that is exactly what the wolf did. So I hope we all find some luck here today. Okay, really quick story, and then we're all gonna go. So this is a story, good luck, bad luck story, and another folk tale. I love to tell because the thing about folk tales is, you know, they cross the generations, they cross the seas and cultures, and they have a message for all of us. Well, there was a farmer. And he had some unusual luck. You see, his horse had just run away, and his neighbor came over and said, "Oh, what awful luck you have! Your horse, it just took off. I mean, how are you going to plant your fields and plow? This is awful luck you have." And the farmer said, "Well, maybe yes, maybe no." And the very next day, that horse came back, and with it, had a beautiful mare. Oh, a beautiful partner. And his neighbor came over and said, "Oh, what great luck you have. Now you don't only have your horse, you have another horse, and this is great luck." And the farmer said, "Well, maybe yes, maybe no." Well, the farmer's son was determined to tame that horse. And he was out with it one evening, and he was trying to bridle it, and that horse bucked up, and that horse came down on the farmer's son, and he broke his leg. And the farmer's neighbor came over and said, "Oh, what awful luck you have. Now who will help you in the fields? Your son, his leg is broken." And the farmer said, "Well, maybe yes, maybe no." It wasn't but a week that went by when war was declared, and they marched through the street collecting every young, capable man. But the farmer's son, he couldn't go. And the neighbor came over and said, "Oh, what luck you have." And the farmer said, "Maybe yes, maybe no." Well, as you can see, this story really has no end. Just take from it what you will, my friend. Thank you for your so kind attention. And I would love to hear your stories sometime. You know, I always feel shy telling stories in front of people that I know have stories, and sometimes all it takes is a spark to get those stories going, and we all have them, so don't be shy about sharing stories. And it's not as, I can't tell stories unless I have a listener, and so I thank you so much for being my listeners this evening. Thank you.